Good morning. Welcome to H4 Woodworks. My name is Randy. For the project today, I'm going to be making a 5-tier corner shelf, such as this one here. Now, a week or so ago, a co-worker of my wife had approached her to ask if I would be able to make something like this. And she sent me the pictures, asked, and I looked at it. Looks fairly simple, not too bad. So I said, sure, I'd go ahead and make it. So I started wrapping my head around how I was going to make these shelves with the rounded front edge. And the first thing I came up with was my local Menards has these large 24-inch pre-glued circular discs. They're about 3/4 inch individual pre-glued strips. So I had a nice front edge profile already. So I cut them into 4 slices to use as the shelves. I had an extra one. And then the shelf design itself was going to have a hole, through hole drilled here, here, and here to run the rods through. Well, I put it all together. I put the shelf up. The shelf unfortunately fell over as I was during assembly, and it cracked. So one of the inherent problems with using these glued up panels is when they're just that. They're glued up little strips, 3/4 strips. So when you drill your hole, it instantaneously already weakens the structure of this board. So I was like, well, go back to the drawing board and figure out what else I got. And I thought about it. I decided to go with 3/4 inch plywood. And there was 2 ways of making this. Initially was getting a circle cutting jig or making a circle cutting jig. I opted not to go with that and just get a sheet of plywood, lay it down. I still had some pieces here that I had not drilled holes in, set it up, made the trace, and then made the cut. In which case I come out with something similar to this. Well, not similar, it's this here. It's not as thick, but didn't really seem to be too much of a concern with me. It actually worked out a little bit better. This is probably like 1 3/4 inch thick, made it really heavy. And as far as what it's going to be used for, it's just going to be used for decorations and whatnots. And 3/4 inch plywood is plenty good enough to support what needs to be on there. So that was my method, and the price for them was not much different. Buying a sheet of plywood and using it actually a little bit cheaper than doing the pre-glued panels. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll set the camera up and we'll go through the process. So you guys enjoy. All right. So this is where we're going to go through and make our shelf cuts out of this 3/4 inch sheet of plywood that I have here. So initially I used this piece here that I was originally going to use as a template to lay out. And I tried to use the corners. So I had 2 factory edges to make it a little better. I've already made a few cuts here. On some I need to replace one here. Yeah, this one here. You can see it's got a really nasty voids in it. I'm just going to chunk this one. It's pretty bad. So I got enough material here to make as many as I need. And then I just lay this out as a template. And in this case here, I'm just going back and using my jigsaw, which is a DeWalt 20 volt XR series. Really good jigsaw if you're looking for a jigsaw, especially if you already have the DeWalt 20 volt series. It works really great, tracks really well, a lot better than my cheaper one that I had. It's a little heavy, so do expect that, but it does a great work. And as you can see, I've got it laid out here. I'm using my table saw as my work surface. Make sure if you are doing this, you either have something underneath, like a piece of foam, or you're well clear of cutting into anything, which I've verified here that I am. So we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll make this one cut. and then we'll take everything over to the bandsaw, stack it up together, and do our final cuts. I'm gonna cut everything kind of proud of the line, and then we'll just do cleanup on the end. So there we have it. That looks pretty good. So there's our panel there, and then we'll make the rest of the panels cut up and take them over to the jigsaw, or excuse me, over to the can't even talk. Over to the bandsaw when we're done and cleaning the rest of it up. So we're going to give it a look over here at the bandsaw and try to, this side here is pretty even on both sides. What we're going to try to do is even out this front edge by working it through the bandsaw. So we'll see what comes of it. Hopefully it works out. If not, I'm gonna have to try a router method. We'll see. It actually worked out pretty good considering. So the next step we're going to work on is going to be able to align the rods or the legs of this stand. So these will be our 5 shelves. And what I've got here for legs is these 1 5/16 inch dowel rods. They're actually for closets. And I will be drilling a hole through these boards in 3 points, basically in these 3 corners. I'm running the rod through the hole and maybe making some sort of a pin, like a shelf pin. But in the process of this, I'm going to keep it all straight because the last time I did this, I did them individually and it messed my alignment up. So I want to try to run the same hole through every piece. Now, I do not have, all fairness, I do not have a drill press. So this would be perfect opportunity and probably the best solution. My temporary solution is this Milescraft drill mate. It's basically a little portable drill press I mount up to my other hand, to my battery powered tool, and we're going to use this as my drill press. Hopefully it works. Right now I have, because 1 5/16 is a very odd size, I'm going to use this 1 1/4 inch spade bit. When I did it last time, it seemed to be a fairly decent hole, even though it's 1 5/16, or at least it says it is. It seemed to work pretty well with a 1 1/4 hole. We'll see from there. If I need to open it up, I will. But at the moment, I do not have a 1 5/16 bit because it's kind of a weird off size. I don't have a spade bit or even a Forstner bit in that size. But we're going to lay it out, mark it out, and we'll give it a shot and see what happens. All right, way I'm going to lay this out is I'm going to set my center point of my hole up in 1 3/4 from the edge on each of these here. And this is the way I want to set my hole up. Center point there. This side here is a little bit easier to deal with, or at least I thought anyway. So that'll lay out my holes there. And the advantage of having a shop with high ceilings is I can actually do this. So That'll be my center point of my hole. Should give me just under an inch. So we'll see what we do from there. We'll see here. It's going to be about an inch on each side of an inch edge distance on the edge. So we'll get started drilling. We'll see there. We'll get started here. We'll put a center punch hole, which I've already done there, and I'll do them here. That'll give me a good point to start the drill bit into, so it doesn't walk too much on me. So it's going to be pretty awkward as it is. I'm going to come back to that one. Get it set up a little bit differently. Tell you what, we'll go ahead and get started here. I heard these rods that I'm using, I've already set the ends up. So these are the holes that I had drilled in it to make some shelf pins, kind of the area where each individual shelf is going to sit. So we'll just kind of, yeah, see how it look like that fit through there nice, snug and smooth. Adjust this just a hair. Right down to the ground like that for now, and then we'll do the same in this corner. Oh yeah, fit nice. I still want to get some extra clamp up here on these here for now, and then we'll rotate it around here. We get. I'm trying to still make sure I keep everything in line as best as possible. Tell you what, this clamp right here I need to take a look at. I probably need to get a new one. And if you guys haven't noticed in some other videos, this one has given me some massive amounts of trouble. And this one did not punch all the way through, contrary to what I thought it had. So we're going to go back and I'm going to go back and re-punch the hole here. Just more on the hole drilling, and then we'll come back and we'll come back after I get everything all set up. All right, after some trial and tribulations, it seemed like this worked. At least these holes here look straight. That one's a little hard to say, but it looks like I got a little bit of an angle to it. I did run a test rod through it, and they do fit nice and snug. So we'll see. We'll get the other rods, put in these two sides, and then turn it around and see about this hole on this side. Well, folks, here it is in all its glory. The IW DIY Ikea shelf. I didn't put the assembly on video because, well, it wouldn't last on YouTube. It's definitely not child appropriate. But it is, it's complete. Well, at least it's assembled. Didn't finish it, but I call this the Ikea shelf because, well, don't ever take it apart because you ain't getting it back together again. Because it's a corner shelf, it should sit in the corner blocked up against two walls, which in theory should keep it as square as whatever two walls that you have. The inherent three-leg design doesn't keep it very square in itself. It has this tendency to really rack over. So I'm hoping when he goes in that corner, it'll stay. If not, what I may end up doing is making some strips to attach at the corners and kind of come down in an X brace to keep it squared up. Only problem with that is it'll impede with the putting it up against a wall. So one of those things I'll have to talk to the customer about and see how they want it. But yeah, I probably wouldn't. Got just more stuff. I want to trim these tops off, make it flush with the top. And the shelves just kind of sit. I can't know if you can see it or not, but there's these little dowel pins, and that essentially is where keeps the shelves where they're at. But from the picture, it's pretty dang close to size dimensions that was in the picture. So that's what they wanted. It's the way it is. It's a little taller than they wanted it, which they wanted about 6 feet, which is pretty close to it. So anyway, we'll work on some finish, put some edge banding around the front, do some sanding down, and then they want it painted matte black. So yep, that's it. I'll probably make a finish up video once it's all done and complete. But behold the Ikea DIY Ikea shelf. All right, we're finished up. This is the final product. Actually looks pretty decent. Worked out pretty well. It's a little more stable now that I put some paint and lacquer and whatnot on it. So that turned out fairly well. Just a quick overview of how this is built. The shelves themselves are built out of 3/4 inch plywood here. This is regular BCX plywood, nothing fancy. The rods here are 1 5/16 inch dowels that provide the legs and support. There's 3 that run all the way through each of the shelves, and then 1 at the bottom just kind of give it some stability up front. The shelves themselves are held in by these small dowel pins. Can't really see them here because they're painted, but essentially I got my measurements of where I wanted my shelves at, drilled a hole, inserted these wooden dowels in each location, and that's what the shelves sit on. So if you want to take this apart, give it a little light tap, either here, pop it loose, pop out your dowels, and then tap out your next shelf, dowel next shelf, and so on and so forth. But in theory, you shouldn't need to take it apart. Finishing, I sanded everything down to a 180 grit. Excuse me, I'm sorry, yes, 180 grit. And then I went back and I applied this acrylic latex black paint to it. And then once that was all dry, I come back and added this Def semi-gloss spray lacquer, a couple of coats of it, and then a nice buff down. But that's it. I think it turned out pretty well. Should be delivered to the customer tomorrow, pending the weather. It's kind of crappy out right now. But that's it. If you like this video, please click the like below. If you'd like to subscribe for future content, please do so. And thank you again.